All right. Well, hello, class. It's John. I am going to be demonstrating how to make an amortization table in Excel. So I wanted to start with some basic information and then work from there. So I'm going to set the amortization table to be a 5-year loan, right? So that's how we get to 60 months. We'll have monthly payments. So, right, five times 12 is 60. And then we have, on here, let me zoom in a little bit here. We've got some information about the interest rate. So it's a 4% annual interest rate. So we will divide that by 12 to get our monthly rate. And so the first thing we need to do in order to make an amortization table is we need to know the payment that we should be paying every month in order for the loan to be exactly finished at the end of the life of the loan. So we can do that using Excel's payment functions. I'm putting negative in front of there just because payment will spit back negative payments to show that the money is traveling the opposite direction from the loan amount. But we don't want to preserve that negative. We just want to know how much our payment is. So I've put a negative in front of the payment function. I have rate here, so I'm going to click on rate, and we know it needs to be divided by 12, so I'm going to do that. Number of periods. And you can see, sorry, I'm working off this guide sort of here. So I want my number of payments to be 60 because it's a 5-year loan. And lastly, it's asking for PV. That stands for present value. So I'm going to click on this principal. And close out parentheses, and get a payment. So I would need to make payments of $920 a month to pay off a $50,000 loan in 5 years. So I'm going to slide over to where we actually make the amortization table. So when we make an amortization table, we're tracking what is the payment every period, what is the interest that is being charged, and then what is the principal, what portion of the payment, what's the dollar portion or the percent portion that's going towards paying off the principal of the loan. So at the end of the first period, we will still have this same amount of loan, but we'll make this payment. This payment will be the same throughout the life of the loan. So I'm just going to push function F4. You can also type dollar signs in front of it by hand, but this will lock that blue cell in and make sure it stays put. So I have my payment locked in at that cell, and now that I've have my payment number, I can calculate the interest that we would have been charged for having a $50,000 loan for 1 month's time. So that math is pretty straightforward. We take the amount that we borrowed, $50,000, and then we multiply by the interest rate, which in this case is 4% divided by 12. Now I don't want H1 moving around, so I'm going to push F4 again, or put dollar signs in. So I will stay put. B2 can move. Now, if we're being really good Excel people, we would be locking in the B column. But since we're only dragging down, that won't matter whether we do that a lot or not. I'm going to do it just as a good practice, but it won't affect the answers that you get. So there's our interest paid. And so naturally, right, if I pay $920 and $166 of it is interest, that means the remainder is going to be principal. And so I'm going to do payment minus interest paid and get that result here. So now here's the key. Now that we know that we're making a $754 payment to principal, that means that this loan, right, is going to get smaller by this principal amount. Right, so just to recap, this payment, the 920, came from a calculation using the PMT function, right, our PMT function with the rate and the number of periods and the loan size. And then we calculated interest using the principal multiplied by the rate, which in our case is 4% divided by 12. And then this last one is the red cell here minus the D cell. Why? Because we paid $920, but 167 of it just went towards paying back the interest we accrued in month one, leaving $754 for principal. Now, if you think about how this would work, right, so this principal is getting smaller, which would mean our interest should get smaller, and it does, in fact, get smaller. Our payment is going to stay the same, and so that means our principal paid should be getting a little larger. And this makes sense, right? You probably know this intuitively. Like, the longer you've paid on your house, the more of your mortgage payments are going towards principal. And that's what we have in this case. So principal is $2 more this month than it was last month. And if I did this right, I should be able to highlight all of these and double click. And if we did it correctly, if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, right, we can see in that last period, we owe $917, $918. We are charged $3 of interest, getting us to $920, but $920 is our payment. So that's how it all zeroes out by the end, right? So that if you did your amortization table correctly, you get it all zeroed out at the end. So how do we use this? So we can ask questions like, at the 2-year mark, what fraction of the interest of the payment is going towards principal? Well, here's this is that final payment in year 2. And we would say, well, of my 920, 814 of it is going towards principal. So that would be 88.4%. And we could ask what percent is going to interest, right? That would be the interest cell divided by the payment. So there's lots of different things we can do with this information, but I guess the important parts are seeing this principal being paid down to nothing over time, to seeing the fraction of the payment going to principal going up until the end when it's all principal, and then seeing the total paid interest every month going down. Right, so those are all things we can see from a simple annuity table. And now I've set this up so if I change this rate to 3%, it will update everything, lowering the payment. We'll still finish in 60 months, but now we will have paid more. And if I raise this rate to something really high, then our payment, went up to 4 digits, is up to $1,100. So I'm going to change it to something that's at least not quite. There we go. So at 7%, we're at $990, and right then we still have this same principal and interest, but interest is a larger portion of the payment initially, and then it declines over time. So yeah, that's how you make an amortization table in Excel. I hope that's helpful. Obviously, it might be helpful to pause and rewind over certain parts. You can also adjust the speed at which things play using the player. So again, it's good to sort of virtually be with you, and best of luck on these last few problems in this assignment. And thank you for all of your work on this class.